What's worse? A story that has a strong start but a weak ending? Or a story that has a weak start but but well, I was going to say a strong ending, but unfortunately Infinite Wealth does not fall into this. They started with a good premise and a good start, only for it to be absolutely and utterly squandered by the end. This is a game that has a good amount of issues, not just in its story, but just its writing in general, some of its design choices, and it's not something I am happy to say. As someone who first really enjoyed the Yakuza series through Yakuza 0, I played the majority of these games, and what I always found consistent throughout these games was it usually had a good quality of writing overall. Now, it may have stumbled here and there, but that's what fans and people could expect from these games. Is the absurdity at times. It could make you feel a whole range of emotions. And yes, Infinite Wealth does make you feel a whole range of emotions at times. And it shows that it still has parts of what makes Yakuza special. But it's also having some glaring issues with namely the story, which I could not believe how all over the place it was. Fully, it's a mess. It's a complete mess. Character arcs are either non-existent or they just go around in a circle and end up exactly where they started at the beginning of the game. There's too many plot holes that I won't spoil in this review, but for a lot of characters, by the ending was completely rushed. They hand waved so many characters that were vital, integral to the story, and then they're just not there anymore. And this is throughout the whole game. This game at times feels like it's going at a snail's pace, and then at other times it's just sprinting to the finish. It's incredibly inconsistent from the writing and even to the quality of the dub. The English dub in particular is egregious for this. This is a Their English dub is absolutely terrible. But supposedly the main villain's English dub, when he does at times speak English, even if you choose Japanese dub, it's horrendous. It's not even, it's just bad. It's not even amusingly bad that you could laugh about it one day. But yeah, that was funny. It's so bad, kind of in a joking manner. No, it's just flat out bad. There's nothing to make fun of. It's not enjoyable to listen to. It's a shame because where where it fails in the writing overall, the gameplay is so much improved from Yakuza 7. And I will keep calling it Yakuza 7 because calling it like a dragon is still odd to me. They add so much to the combat now that it at times it doesn't even feel like turn-based combat anymore. But it's still very satisfying and fun, and it makes sense given the series DNA, where it was mainly a brawler, and it feels like that still. But it has that RPG aspect to it. where you're gearing your equipment to all your party members and leveling them up and having the job system. So then they gain new abilities, and then you could inherit skills from other jobs to incorporate it into whatever job you want. The combat is very satisfying. It is by far the best part of this game, and it holds it up so strongly. It is because of the combat that I don't say this game is bad, or average, or mediocre. It's a good game because of the combat. Because now in combat, you're able to move your characters. Positioning is important because now you could do team up attacks with your party members. You can knock people into other enemies. There's a lot more strategy involved and a lot more active decision making you can do. And it's so satisfying. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's so satisfying. It is one of the best turn-based combat systems now. They've really made something really fun that didn't take away from turn-based combat, but adding their own twist and flavor to it from their Yakuza roots. I think they did a great job with that. Unfortunately, usually people like to talk about sub-stories and all their plots and absurdity and how silly it can get. And yes, it can get silly in this game, but it's nowhere near the quality I expect from the studio. Most of the sub-stories are honestly feel run-of-the-mill. They don't feel inspired, and they don't feel too unique. There are some standouts, I will admit, and I'm happy to admit, but overall, it just feels like it's going through the motions. And that's what this game feels like to me. It feels like it's going through the motions. It feels like they have a formula they stuck to, this is what people like, and then they're just going to run with it. And you know what? It works for the most part. It works for a lot of the Yakuza games because, let's be honest, Yakuza 1 through 6, most of them just, there's a reason why people make those comments of, it's more of the same story, things like that. Here, I really start to feel it. It really does bother me this time. And I think this game actively gets in its own way. It trips over itself constantly. And you know, I could always make the saying that bigger isn't always better, and this is one of those cases. They try to stuff it with so much stuff, so much content, and there's fun to be had. And it's great that there's a lot of bang for your buck. So when you're paying for this, you are getting your money's worth. But it doesn't mean everything is actually fun to play. And I think the minigames are some of the weakest minigames they've ever done. They have a crazy taxi-esque kind of minigame that's honestly too close to the can quest or the collecting can minigame from Yakuza 7. They have a Sujimon. What they call Sujimon is, well, it's just a Pokemon minigame, which it's not well thought out. It's extremely shallow. When you do level up your Sujimon and everything, there's really nothing to customize or anything. They don't learn new moves like in Pokemon. They don't evolve. Well, you can eventually, but not to the evolution that you think in Pokemon. It just is extremely shallow. I wish they put more thought into it, and was wholly unsatisfying, and the storyline for it was forgettable. And the same goes for their Animal Crossing minigame. I was hoping it would be more to it than what it is, but I found it to be incredibly grindy and repetitive, just constantly collecting bundles of wood, rock, bugs, crabs, seashells, everything. You constantly have to do that. And you may like it if you like those kinds of games. I usually do, but for some reason this version of like an Animal Crossing kind of game, I found their execution was very much lacking. It's tough because I was hoping this game would live up to my expectations of the series. And you could see it. You could see it at times. This game still has it when it can. And it reminds me why I got invested into this series. But then there was a lot of questionable decisions. It's tough because there's so much I want to really like about it, but I cannot ignore these glaring issues that just, as the game went on, it just kept popping up more and more. And it's a real shame because I think they have stumbled. They have lost their way right now. I think they have sabotaged Ichiban's character, his own supposed game. And it's not much of a spoiler because it's on the cover art, but Kiryu is just... he takes over the story. And this just becomes a Kiryu story, pretty much. After you reach about halfway through the game. Ichiban gets sidelined in his own game, supposedly, so it's a shame, because I liked Ichiban from 7. I thought he was a great character they introduced. But here, he's incredibly frustrating to be constantly just having him talk. His character is the most egregious when it comes to not learning a thing. He constantly goes in circles, makes a number of mistakes, and yet by the end, he still makes those same mistakes. And it's incredibly frustrating. Because it's not like small mistakes that's happening, but it's people dying kind of thing. People's lives are on the line. And he's still being his usual self. And the problem is none of his friends are confronting him about it. Which brings me into the whole point of Ichiban's friends didn't need to be in this game. I found the newer characters to be a welcome addition. Chitose and Tomizawa. They're great characters. And I think I would have been fine with just new characters. These old characters you know from the previous game, yeah, they're great. But you already know what you need to know about them. Their characters have not changed, and that's true in this game. They're along for the ride, and that's it. And maybe that'll be good enough for you, but for me it wasn't. I wanted more than just them just tagging along. Unfortunately, I think Infinite Wealth stumbles far too much to outweigh just so happen be better, like have the bad just not be as bad as like the good, as a roundabout way of saying it. The combat holds it up so much. And if you have a chance, you should pick this up on sale because it is not worth full price. Despite the amount of content, but I do not go the value just by how much content there is. I go also by the quality of it. And to me, the quality is lacking overall. Story frustrated me to no end towards the end. There's too many plot inconsistencies and characters making out of character decisions that just don't make any sense. Characters just appearing and then completely disappearing. Characters that don't learn anything, their arcs are non existent. I could go on, and I have. And unfortunately, I hope the next game fixes a lot of these issues. Because I think they've had a good foundation with Ichiban in 7. But this is a misstep. And I hope they learn from it. They don't make the same mistakes, just like the characters did in this game.